As many who've been working with our movement for a long time know that the most innovative partnerships that we've had are in American cities. They're working with mayors, because what mayors do is they don't have time to score political points. They don't have time to get involved in partisan issues because they have to get it done. And those that know me know I just censored myself. They have to get it done. They don't have time for the foolishness. Last year, or 2 years ago when you were here, you heard from a municipal leader in Tashara Jones, treasurer for the city of St. Louis. Tashara, can you stand up and wave your hand? One of the sheroes of our movement. So you have the treat today, you're going to hear from 4 mayors who are really innovating work in financial security. And if they could all come to the stage, when you get here, I'll introduce and then we'll have a conversation. So give them a hand as they come to the stage. See, I know Melvin's mom, so I see that he's definitely the gentleman. So I'll start with introduction going from here down, from Mayor Schaaf down. So Mayor Schaaf is the mayor of one of the most progressive cities in the country, of Oakland, California. And has spurred a really innovative initiative, which she's going to talk about, focusing on children and families. So everyone, welcome Mayor Libby Schaaf. Mayor Woodards from Takoma is a close friend of ours. It is not her first conference. She has been here many times before because she has been an activist in this movement for a long time and now is the mayor of Takoma, Washington. Please welcome Mayor Woodards. We got Washington in the house. I got a feeling it's going to get a little ruckus here the next one. So, Mayor Carter is from my hometown, St. Paul, Minnesota.
That's right, that's right.
I knew you were out there. I knew they were out there. Is a graduate of St. Paul Central High School, like myself, go Minutemen.
That's right.
And is the first African-American mayor of the city of St. Paul, and is really charging forward with some energy for that city. So again, Mayor Melvin Carter. And last but certainly not at all least, we have Mayor Tubbs, Michael Tubbs from Stockton, California.
All right, Michael.
And he's going to talk about it, but he has really stepped out and took a major risk because he is piloting a really innovative program in Stockton that people are going to study and everyone knows is going to be a great success. Mayor Tubbs from Stockton, California. So we're going to go first. I'm going to ask a question of all of them. We'll go down the line. We'll start with Mayor Schaaf and make our way down. But really, I'd like for all of you to talk about what's going on in your city around financial security, what you're doing to address financial security, but really talk about why you did that versus the thousands of other things that happen in the city any given day. So start with Mayor Schaaf, and then we'll go down.
Sure. Well, listen, I'm born and raised in Oakland. I have always been just madly in love with my city, and I'm going to give you a disclaimer right now. I am fighting a horrible cold, and if I say something crazy, it is the NyQuil talking.
Right.
Okay.
But I told her this crowd likes crazy, so it'll go over well.
I always said that if I ever met the genie who would give me just one wish for my city, it would be that every child gets a great education.
That's right.
We all know, like, that's the thing. That's the thing that moves people, that opens up the world to them, that gives them power and autonomy and freedom. So when I became mayor, I don't know if this happened to all of you, but the minute you become mayor, everybody comes and brings you their great idea. Right. And you're like, oh my God. It's a little overwhelming. But I had this moment because people brought me a lot of great ideas around how do we totally change and transform educational outcomes for our city. And I had this moment where I felt like, you know what? We have failed because we haven't been ambitious enough. This idea that, oh, I got to just choose one thing and do it well because I'm afraid that if I take on too much that I'll fail at everything is BS. There, I censored myself. We've got to just buck up and recognize that it is a comprehensive, holistic approach because life is complex, right? So we are excited, and there are a lot of different things that we're doing in Oakland, but the one that I really want to drill down on today is the Oakland Promise. And we are, look, I haven't even said what it is yet. You don't have to clap yet. We are really looking at the entire arc, since we were talking about arcs, of a child's life, from the moment that they're brought into this world to the moment that they actually launch into a successful, life-sustaining career. What are all the supports they need along the way? Now, I was hoping they were going to throw up this gorgeous picture of this woman and her baby that just so inspired me. Come on backstage. Do you have the little picture with the baby up high? All right, well, just envision it. This smiling mother. Thank you. There she is. Yay. Okay. I love this woman. I'm just to respect her privacy. I'm going to call her Anna. I'm going to call her baby Caleb. Okay. Anna is one of our brilliant baby moms. During her baby's first year of life, she got a $500 college savings account for him. But she also got the opportunity to take us up on financial coaching. And that means that she actually got some cash payment right away to address some of her personal struggles. You know, every family has it. And then she got this amazing coach that would like call her, if she didn't have time to like arrange a meeting, that she'd call her when she was doing her grocery shopping in the grocery aisle. And what she found was that she went from really worrying, and this just breaks my mother's heart, really worrying that she didn't have a life insurance policy for her baby because we all know that Oakland is still struggling with street violence. But she went from worrying about that to just seeing her baby in college. That was so exciting for her. It shifted her level of stress and feeling of pride as a parent. And we all, those of us who are married, also know that like the marriage got a little more happy because the arguments about money were starting to go away because they had a shared vocabulary from working with this coach. She knew that when her baby started kindergarten, he was going to get an Oakland Promise early scholarship, one that is actually sits in the city's treasury and gets built on through that child's successful career in our public school system. And that by the time he got to middle school and high school, he would have a future center, a place where he could learn about internships and what are some of the college choices that he might have, and what is the educational path to get to some of the jobs that interested him. And then he would have help filling out all of those horrible forms. Could someone out there fix the FAFSA? I mean, that thing is ridiculous. But that someone would walk him through filling out that ridiculous form so that he could get the state and federal money that he's entitled to help him. That he'd find out that in California, if you make less than $85,000 a year, you can go to a UC tuition free. Families don't know that. And that once that little beautiful baby is accepted to college, the Oakland Promise would not only give him his scholarship that he had built up since that first day in kindergarten, but would also encourage him to apply for other private scholarships, get all that aid, and give him a mentor to help support him through that college experience. That is holistic. That is the thing that gets me so excited about what we're doing in Oakland. Please just celebrate that beautiful picture up there. That's why we're all here. Thank you.
Mayor Woodards, tell us about Takoma.
Well, so I got into this work a little bit differently. I think I had the great opportunity to be the former president and CEO of the Takoma Urban League. Not to mention, just like probably all of us we are mayors of our own hometowns. I wasn't born in Takoma, but I've been there since 3, and I don't claim anywhere else as my home but Takoma. But, you know, let me start with saying I noticed financial insecurity because I lived it. And so your lived experience certainly makes you more aware of what happens around you. But when I became president and CEO of the Urban League, when you work every day with people who come in, who were struggling, who need help, made me really think we've got to find a better way to address this. The Urban League has always been about economic empowerment and all of those things, but I think we're just seeing a time where people were really struggling. And so I had a great opportunity to participate with the Northwest Area Foundation and Prosperity Now. And Takoma is one of the sites for the African American Financial Capability Initiative. And that opportunity really showed us what we could do. I always thought that we've really got to we've got to work with children, but we've also got to work with their families. We've got to make sure that while they're going off to school and we're helping them get into college, that we're stabilizing their families as well, because it's a holistic approach, as Libby has already said. And so we started cohorts, and you heard a little bit about it yesterday in our 7-minute lightning round with our talk show host. But at the Urban League, we really started a program we started these cohorts that started dealing with the psychological issues that we have with money. And we've trained up a cohort that's now going to be able to go out and train others. So we've got this great group of people who are financial navigators, and they're going to be able to go help other people. But then I decided, well, this is great work, and I was a city council member at the time, so I had some influence, but decided, you know what, I really want to take this citywide, and a good way for me to do that is to become mayor. and so I ran and got elected. And so I am excited about the impact that I can have in our community, because I bring that work with me. It's not something I learned when I got there. It's something I brought with me, and it was one of the things I wanted to do. One of the other things that's happening in our community is working with our Takoma Housing Authority, we started childhood savings accounts in a particular area in Takoma, which is called Salishan, and under my leadership, I'm calling it a pilot. Because what I'd like to see at the end of my term is to see that every child in our city has a childhood savings account. Children who enroll in kindergarten, by the time they graduate, can have $9,700 if they put everything in it. Wow. Which is an amazing amount of money for somebody who graduates. And that money can be used, it's not necessarily tuition money, but it's for housing costs and other costs that we don't think about, because scholarships are great to get kids in school, but what about all the other needs they have after they get there? How do we make sure that not only do they get to college, but they're successful when they get there? And that's what the childhood savings account is about. So we've got a pilot project going, but planning to take it, not hoping, we'll take it. Citywide by the end of my second term. Because I think I can sit here and proudly say that the city of Takoma has increased their graduation rate. We have an 86.1 graduation rate in our city.
Wow.
And I clap for that all the time. That's something to be applauded. But if kids only graduate and don't have another path to go after graduation, or more jobs or a job after graduation, we're doing them an injustice. We've got to make sure that not only can they get through high school and graduate, but that they have that opportunity after high school to be successful. And so as mayor, I'm really focused on making sure that we provide all the tools that we can and be supportive. The other thing I'll just add to that as well is that in addition to graduating students, I want to thank Solana and Prosperity Now. The blueprint, sorry, I couldn't think of the name of it. You're cold, jet lag. There are things working against all of us up here this morning. Next time you do a plenary session with mayors from the West Coast, can you make it in the afternoon?
Yeah, I agree.
It is 6 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I've been up since 3, my time. But the blueprint that you all put out is very, very helpful. So I want to just take this opportunity to say thank you. As I went through it and read the whole thing, I was checking off all the things that we're already doing, but it also provided some real life things that we can do and some policy changes that we can make now. So in addition to all that we're doing, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the Solana she referenced was Solana Wrights, our state policy director, and her team sitting right there up front. So. Mayor Carter.
Well, first of all, I appreciate being here. The speakers this morning have been incredible. The mayors on this stage are really inspirational to me. I was informed before I came on, Jeremie, that I'm really just invited here to tell stories from our childhood. Hey. But luckily, Jeremie and I were both very straight-laced kids who never got into any trouble, as long as we have the microphones, right? Right. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I introduce myself every day in St. Paul, and I'm sure there will be some challenge to that on this stage, but as having the opportunity to serve the most incredible city on the planet. And I love our city, and I don't joke when I say that, because there's nothing but potential and opportunity in front of our city. I love Minnesota. You know, I remember telling a group of folks 10 years ago when I first ran for city council, you know, when I think of Minnesota, we have some of the greatest outcomes in the nation. We're an education state, we're a home ownership state, we're a healthy and safe state, we're a low unemployment state. And in all of those areas, we actually have some of the worst disparities in the nation as well. And so when I first ran for city council, I remember telling a group of voters that I love Minnesota so much, I'm running to bring some of it into my neighborhood. And so I was elected mayor just last November, sworn in this January, and we've been doing a little bit of what you said, Mayor Schaaf, in terms of just trying to put everything on the table and go as hard as we can. I was told by someone, you know, not to do everything at once because I'd run out of political capital, and then I wouldn't get reelected. And I said, well, if I'm not going to get reelected, I better hurry.
Yeah.
And so we have been in the process of really implementing a lot of the things that we see in the blueprints. Tashara Jones is a good friend of mine, spoke in Minnesota recently, and one of our city council members as she was speaking kept looking and going, and I said, yeah, that's who I stole that idea from. And so we're busy right now implementing college savings accounts in our city. There are many people in this room who are on our task force. Thank you so much for your work. We've given them like 7 months to put the whole thing together. And in partnership with Prosperity Now, please do give them a round of applause. Because one of the things that's been something of a revelation to me, I need an excuse. I'm not on NyQuil. I'm just not as smart as these guys. That's my excuse. So one thing that's been something of a revelation to me is that when we look at our anti-poverty initiatives in America, 95% of those strategies amount to putting money in the hands of people who already have money. Developers or businesses or, you know, job creators or whoever it is. And so, you know, what I'm excited about is the notion of saying, how do we reverse that, right? How do we reverse the polarity of those strategies? A mentor of mine, Jeff Canada, who founded the Harlem Children's Zone, always says, instead of helping kids beat the odds, let's focus on changing the odds. And so our work here in St. Paul says, how do we build anti-poverty initiatives that center around giving low-income people in our community back their own money, giving them the opportunity to have their own money. So I'm committed to I'm going to sign it into law before the end of the year. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, so nobody who works full-time is stuck living in poverty. Just last month, I proposed a $71 million housing initiative to our council that would focus around new unit production, unit production, existing housing unit preservation, and also fair housing protections. You know, in our line of work, you know, if you can boil something down into 3 bullet points and they all start with the same letter, it's God's will. I just proposed to the council, we are tripling our amount of free programming in our recreation centers. And last week we announced we're eliminating library fees from our library system. Which will turn back on 51,000 library cards that are deactivated right now because of an average of $33 of library debt dating back to 2009. That is insane. And so our focus is saying, how do we, and we talk about our city's budget and our money in this way every day, is how do we take our money? Because I was talking to a group of teenagers recently, and I mentioned, what the city's budget is, and I told them, we tax and we, we invest, and we kind of have these programs. And one of these teenagers, a 17-year-old girl, looks at me and says, "You guys spend over $500 million every year. Where it at?" And what occurred to me is she doesn't care. A lot of times we cities, we measure the success of our budget process based on our successful ability to pass an audit or maintain our credit ratings. She doesn't care. She wants to know, how does that land in our lives? So one of the things that we did earlier this year that drew a lot of criticism was we ended up canceling our fireworks show in St. Paul for the 4th of July. I had a very short conversation. Somebody walked in my office and said, "Mayor, do you want fireworks on the 4th of July?" I said, "Yes, I love fireworks." They said, "It's going to cost us $100,000. And I said, "No, what's next?" And unrelatedly, we were just having this conversation earlier. Completely coincidentally, Jeremie, we were able to find $100,000 in this year's budget, the exact same amount, coincidentally, to establish a legal defense fund for immigrants and refugees in our city. And so I share with my community every day that the lesson that I learned growing up in my household from my parents, that if your budget doesn't reflect your values, they're not your values. Mm-hmm. That's right. And through this work that we're doing with lots and lots of support from Prosperity Now, through this work that we're doing, we're giving families the opportunity to say that same thing on an individual level. And, between raising the minimum wage, we're also with support from Prosperity Now, we also proposed in my budget proposal for 2019 to establish an Office of Financial Empowerment in our city. With the notion that, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but when people in our lowest income communities are spending 10% of their monthly income just on financial services alone, predatory financial services, well, of course, that's going to create a revolving door that will be difficult for any of us to get out of. So our goal is to say we want to, as a city, help people raise their credit score. We want to help people as a city be able to access, lending and, non-predatory financial services. We want to help people as a city save for college and save for retirements. And I should say, with our college savings account, I put a big asterisk by college, because we always tell folks what I mean by college is something after high school, because we know that our young people will need something after high school. And the last thing that I'll share with you, and I'll give it to my Mayor Tubbs, is that I'm excited about in the context of saying we're not going to put money in the hands of people who already have plenty of it, we're working with our Metropolitan Economic Development Association, Gary Cunningham's in the front row, to create a $1 million business pitch contest for business owners with innovative ideas in our communities of color. That pitch contest is going to be next month. So a lot of the things that we're doing is really focused on rewiring our thinking around money, both the money that's in our personal pockets and the money that's in our collective pocket through the city, and saying we can rewire the way we allow our money as individuals, as families, and as an entire city to work for us.
Thank you. So I failed to mention in my introduction of Mayor Tubbs that he is also the first African-American mayor of the city of Stockton. And
the oldest. The oldest mayor.
The oldest mayor? No, and the youngest mayor to lead a major American city. So I don't want to let that go by without being acknowledged. Because it's important as you hear about the real risks that he's taking as mayor, because with those two things, you know that your risk tolerance typically for a mayor has to be pretty low, but he threw that out the window. So Mayor Tubbs, talk to us about Stockton.
Yeah, well, first, let me say, I think this morning really mirrors my usual mornings, because generally I wake up, go on Twitter or Google what my favorite mayors are doing, and then talk to my staff and say, why are we not doing this, and how do we do this, and what's the timeline? So again, I just got some new ideas from you all per usual. I can't wait to text my staff as soon as I'm off this stage and give us more work to do. In terms of risk, especially around financial security, I would say, like everyone on this stage, it comes from a mixture of almost a spiritual perspective and also personal. I know when I read the Bible, it says things like the righteous care about justice for the poor. When I read the Bible, it talks about make sure you take care of the widow, the orphan. When I even read some of the stuff in the Old Testament, it talks about how when there's abundance, you leave some in the field so those who have none can pick it up. So when we think about risk, I think the risk for me is in doing nothing.
That's right.
And not.
That's right.
And I'll also say it comes from a deeply personal place. My mom, she had me as a teenager, and she was single. My father is still incarcerated. So when we talk about issues of poverty or financial insecurity, they're not things I studied at Stanford, but things I lived. I remember opening the refrigerator and seeing like a block of cheese, government cheese. So I remember my mom being so excited when I was 10 years old when she went to the check cashing place for the last time and said, you will never go to places like these, promise me. Mm-hmm. Or I remember when I was 13 years old and we watched our house get built, our first house that she owned. And I just remember the joy in that. And I think those experiences make me really willing to take a risk, because I think the mayors agree with me that if you're a mayor, your job is to believe in your city, and your city is nothing more than the people who live in it. So if you can't trust the people in your city to make sound decisions or to have money, then maybe you shouldn't be working in public service, and maybe you shouldn't be a mayor. So everyone talks about the basic income thing, so I'm going to take a point of personal privilege to talk about the other things we're doing in Stockton around financial security, because basic income is important, but I also want to caution that it's not a panacea for every single ill facing those who are financially insecure. So when I was on city council 4 years ago, the things I was most proud of was that in 2 years, we opened a financial credit union in my council district, which had been underbanked, unbanked, no banks. It was the first new private investment in 50 years. And that was important because the neighborhood I grew up in, I was rife with check cashing places and liquor stores where folks with no money were paying more money to get money to pay bills, and it was a revolving cycle over and over again. So I was really, no one writes about that. That's not going to be in Forbes, but that was something I was really proud of because it really made a difference for the folks in my council district. Much like when I came into office, I remember reading about the Oakland Promise, and spent a whole year hustling and getting on the phone and figuring out how do we do this for Stockton, and understanding that an investment in our future is also probably the most important investment we can make. So we have a program in Stockton called Stockton Scholars. That starts this year. So starting this year, every graduating senior from our biggest high school district, Stockton Unified, is guaranteed to do something after high school. $500 for trade school or community college for 2 years, or $1,000 a year for 4 years for a CSU or UC or some other university. And like Mayor Schaaf said, it's very powerful because for Stockton students, there's usually a $1,000 tuition gap between graduation and CSU, and most of them, with given the aspiration to go to a UC, will probably go for free anyway. So then that scholarship could be used for living expenses and other things. And then we're rapidly working on expanding the prenatal to 18-year-old programming as well, and it'll probably be something that will kill myself and my team over the next 4 to 6 years. But now what everyone wants to hear about is basic income, so let's talk about it. I think oftentimes people think of basic income as an idea that's like 20 years from now for when robots and automation comes and displaces people. And automation may happen, people may be displaced, but I think if you look at the statistics now, if we don't get the foundation settled now, in 20, 30 years, it's gonna be a much difficult conversation to have when there's masses of people potentially who don't have jobs. So I remember reading stats like 1 in 2 Americans can afford one $500 emergency, and thinking, well, that's America, but Stockton, the median income for a household is $46,000, so the number's probably more like 2 in 3, or something really high for the city. It's like we have to do something about this. I remember reading about Dr. King and where do we go from here, and he talked about the simplest solution to abolish poverty is probably the most effective, and a guaranteed income paid at the minimum income. Median income. I remember being very surprised because I never studied that or heard about that when we talk about I Have a Dream or we talk about Dr. King. And I was like, why is that? So to make a long story short, we're piloting a basic income program in Stockton starting in February, where folks will be selected based on living in neighborhoods in the city that are at or below the median income of this area median income of $46,000, which means in every council district throughout the city, there will be houses that qualify. We have a great team of evaluators from University of Pennsylvania and Tennessee who will be looking at sort of what happens when people get money. But I mean, for me, as you mentioned in your introduction, the evidence is pretty clear that most people make good decisions when given the opportunity to make good decisions. If you look at studies from the Alaska Permanent Dividend Fund, or some studies of disbursements with Native American tribes, or things that are going on globally, yes, some people don't make good decisions, but the vast majority of people understand the need to like pay bills and don't want to be in debt or stressed. But I think for me, what's been most exciting is the conversation we're having about values. I'm sure I'm not talking to people in this room, but I was shocked with the amount of people whose jobs and livelihoods are based on helping poor people who don't believe in poor people. I've been shocked I've been shocked with this. Well, there has to be requirements, and maybe I'm just young and naive. But I thought the folks who worked with these folks would be crazy enough to believe like me that maybe with a little bit of coaching, but the folks aren't dumb. And we've had a lot of conversations about, well, these folks need financial literacy. And I tell people that may or may not be the case, but I think it's hard to tell if someone can manage money if they don't have money, right? That's real. That's right. And I know some people in my family, they can make $10 stretch like a month. Like they're like magicians with money. So I say all that to say that in a city with a 23% poverty level, an area median income of $46,000, so the work you all are doing is so important. And I also think that, especially given what's happening nationally, that now is the best opportunity to be bold. To be audacious and to really dream big, especially because the folks that we serve, the folks we fight for, the folks we're working for, who aren't just poor folks, but working poor and middle-class folks, they're really living in a crisis. I can't imagine, especially now as an adult, I can't imagine how my mom did it, like every month not knowing if all the bills would be paid on time. Like just being one day late, it's very stressful, and much less taking care of kids. So we have a sacred obligation and responsibility to do all we can for the quote-unquote least of these, but I know the folks here at Prosperity Now are willing to do it. And Bob, I'm glad you're helping St. Paul and Takoma and Oakland, because Stockton's going to be next on that list. And 2 years from now, we'll talk about childhood savings accounts and prosperity accounts. What's that, $2,000 for? I'm all in. Let's do it.
Right. So I have a couple questions, but I'm going to split it up. Start with Mayor Tubbs and Mayor Schaaf. Both of you grew up in the cities all of you grew up in the cities that you currently govern, but the two of you do as well. I wonder if you could talk about how has your city changed, and what have you seen in your city that really sparked you to kind of move in the direction that you're moving? Let's start with Mayor Tubbs and go to Mayor Schaaf.
And I'll be brief this time. So to answer the question, I think growing up in Stockton has beautiful neighborhoods, gated communities, waterfront communities. You can see the canal and the delta from your backyard. I didn't know that until I became mayor. So the biggest change is like all the nice parts of the city. I'm like y'all live like this? Like it's amazing. So growing up, so much of the narrative was leaving Stockton, because we grew up on the other side of Stockton, where there's beautiful people, but like crumbling parks, like beautiful children and fun and community and love, but there's gunshots at night. So growing up, the message from mom was, you have to get out of Stockton, you have to get out of Stockton, you got to get out of Stockton. You can love being from Stockton, but it's not a place you need to come back to. But now as mayor, I see like so much possibility, as Mayor Carter said, like, no, you don't have to flee from Stockton. Like, you could be from Stockton, understand we have issues, but there's also a lot of good in this city. And I think now, as mayor, I really see sort of the assets and the good, and it's like, wow, we have so much to work with, and it should be in every neighborhood.
Yeah. Mayor Schaaf?
Well, right now we are just struggling with gentrification and displacement. I grew up in Oakland. There was a bustling downtown, and then, we saw a lot of changes in Oakland. Crack cocaine epidemic hit Oakland really hard. We had a huge earthquake. And what's happening now is I feel like we're like the girl in 8th grade that just got her braces off. We have always been cute. But suddenly y'all are noticing us.
We have always been.
Part of it is Silicon Valley is moving up the bay.
Yeah.
And Mayor Tubbs and I spent yesterday lobbying on the Hill around the need for housing, more support around housing, affordable housing, homelessness.
That's right.
Because we cannot have prosperity with the home prices and the rents that are too damn high. So it's all connected, right? And so, you know, in the Bay Area, we also have to stop just looking. I know we're all like love our cities and we're the best cities ever.
Absolutely.
But we've got to also recognize our interconnectedness.
That's right.
That we cannot always solve our problems alone. We have to think regionally. And in the Bay Area, we've added 8 jobs for every 1 unit of housing that we've built for the last like couple of decades.
Wow.
And so that's caused a huge spike in prices. It's caused a huge amount of displacement from Oakland. Oakland, you know, is a city that its legacy is like working class. Its legacy is as an African American city. You know, it's the birthplace of the Black Panthers. Everyone watched Black Panther, by the way, that movie? Mm-hmm. You all have to also go out and see Blind Spotting. It is amazing, amazing. So we've seen the African American population in Oakland decline by more than 25% during the first decade of this century. And so, we also have seen a huge increase in our immigrant community, which actually makes us beautiful. So we've seen a huge increase in Latinos and Southeast Asians. And nobody, please don't tell Jeff Sessions that I'm in town. I'm worried he's going to jump out with some handcuffs. I got myself in a little bit of trouble with this. That's the NyQuil talking. But yeah, so Oakland has gone through these shifts. Gentrification is a huge issue. The cost of living has just skyrocketed. And I'm trying to hold on to what keeps Oakland, Oakland, my beloved hometown. And, you know, while I've been the mayor, we've seen a huge housing boom. We have cranes all over our downtown. And part of me is like, yay, and the other part is like, oh shit. Because we need to build new housing because the wealthy people are moving in from San Francisco. I would say then the Oaklanders are all moving to Stockton. But we've got to build new housing so that these new residents don't push out the residents that I already have. But these are luxury condos. Like they're not places that will be affordable to the vast majority of the people that live in my city. My city has always been a city of 2 cities. We have the hills and the flats. And I don't want to see them continue to get farther apart. I want to see them come together.
Thank you. So Mayor Woodards and Mayor Carter, also if you could reflect on what it's like to kind of what you've seen in your city, but also that we got advocates and activists who interact with municipal government kind of all the time. So in addition to talking about what you're seeing in your city as you grew up there, do you have any advice for the folks in the crowd about how they can really spur change in their cities, working with their mayors in their hometowns? Start, Mayor Woodard.
Well, so the first thing I'll say, having been an advocate to advocates, is the first thing is never show up at a city council meeting and call everybody really bad names, or show up in their office and tell them what horrible people they are and all of that, because that's what I lived through. And then you want me to listen to what it is you have to say and be respectful. So the first thing is be respectful. I know I'm starting preaching to the choir as well. Everybody in this room gets that. But the other thing I'll say, what's really helpful for me as a policymaker is to come in with concrete problems but please come in with some solutions. Because too often you look at your mayor or a person working in policy, a leader, and you say, well, you have all the answers. I'm just bringing you the problems. And I would be the first to say, when I ran, I said, now, if you think you're electing me because I can solve every single problem because I have all the answers, that is incorrect. But I believe that as mayors and as leaders, we have the responsibility to listen to you, the people who do the work every day, who have the solutions. And so I think when you come and you talk to someone, bring the problem, absolutely. Be able to lay it out. But the second thing is really bring some concrete solutions that we can apply. We are all working on this issue, and I think when you started out saying, you work on a million different things. Well, the problem is we're working on this, and we're still working on a million different things because we don't get the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm only going to focus on this. Because if I could, it would be what I focus on because I believe it is the game changer for our community. It is a game changer for our city. But while I'm focusing on that, I also got to make sure that the potholes are filled. I got to make sure that the lights are timed correctly. I got to make sure that we have enough public safety between our police and our fire department. So there are a lot of other things going on, but we know this is a game changer. But the other thing is once you bring an idea, once you bring a solution, hold us accountable. Don't think that just because you left it on our desk and walked away, that we now got it. Hold us accountable. I tell my people in my city all the time, don't just tell me once and say, okay, great, and then come back a year later and go, well, I told you a year ago, but you didn't get that done yet. Hold us accountable. We didn't get elected, and I believe that. I don't believe that about every mayor, but I do definitely believe it about the four of us sitting here, that we ran and got elected because we wanted to serve, because we wanted to make a change, because we all love our community so much. I am so in love with Takoma. Takoma is next to God, is my first love. And so I do wake up every day going, how do I make this city a better place for everyone who lives in it? What can I do? But the key is that it's what can I do as a leader, as the mayor, but what can all of us do? Because we all have a stake in the success of our cities. So if you're asking me, Mayor, what can I say to you? What can I do? How can I get you to move? Talk to me with respect and come with not only problems, but come with solutions. I might have a little PSTD over my last council meeting about the respect thing, but certainly solutions as well as problems.
Thank you, Mayor Carter, you close us out.
Yeah, I'd underscore that. I always tell folks that as a leader, I do my best thinking in other people's brains. And
Write that down.
and it's so true. Our vision that we've built in St. Paul is really building a city that works for all of us. And we say that and we rehearse it and we talk to each other about what it means for this to really work for all of us. Because St. Paul has always worked, and what I hear about all of these cities is that our communities have always worked really well for some of us. And that there's whole segments of our community that are left behind. And when we have our cities being built up and we have these great buildings that are standing in the sun and whole communities, whole neighborhoods that are forgotten in their shadows, that's not gonna work for our communities. Right now, I believe in cities. I believe cities are where it's at. I believe cities are our opportunity. I believe communities are our ability, right? If we believe that what's going on the federal, national level is going in a direction that we're uncomfortable with, well, the opposite of that, the way to oppose that is by saying we're gonna focus on our neighborhood. We're gonna focus on changing the world by changing our cities. And so, we're asking people, and we talk a lot. I mentioned two things, that I'm our city's first mayor of color, and also that our city has some of the worst disparities in the nation. I always challenge my city to remember that those two things are not coincidental to one another. That decisions always benefit the decision makers. And City Hall is no different. And so if we're gonna build a city that works for all of us, it's gonna require all of us to do some of the building. And so, that would be my challenge to you is bring this information back to City Hall, bring it to your mayor, bring it to your city council member, there's so much actionable information in the scorecards that Prosperity Now creates, in the blueprint that Prosperity, there's so much just actionable information that our cities can take on right now. There's a community of mayors, I steal from these mayors all the time. And we're kind of constantly kind of talking to each other, and let them know that there's a support there that exists for them, and they're going to need you. Like I said, our to Mayor Woodard's point, we run around in a million different circles every day. I joke with folks, I didn't major in this on occasion, when 300,000 pounds of rock falls on one of our main streets and I'm out there on a Saturday and they're like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I didn't major in this, I don't know. But our college savings accounts program is underway and it's moving forward, and it's frankly not because of me. It's because of the people on the task force. Right. It's because of the volunteers who have come together and said, we're going to push this forward. And I get reports back, but I'm not the one doing the hard work. And so staying engaged, educating and informing yourself like this, staying connected to this national community is important. Staying connected to Prosperity Now and making sure your local officials know about the tools and resources that exist here, and then frankly at other organizations who are doing similar work as well, and encouraging them to kind of really plug in and get engaged and plug into this national network, I think is transformational.
Yeah, good.
I want to add one thing really quickly. I want to challenge everyone in this room to take that blueprint back to City Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And take it to City Hall and take it to your mayors and your council members and say, how many of these things are we doing and what are we not doing and how can we implement them now?
That's right.
No better way to end with a ringing endorsement of our Prosperity Now's work, and everyone contribute. So everyone, please give a round of applause to these really great leaders in our community.